Hey there, everybody. I just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the format of this particular worksheet packet, and then you can use this information later on of just how to complete this in this digital format and what you're going to see and some of the different tools that you might be able to use. I trust actually that most of you probably already know a lot of these things or you are smart enough to figure it out, but I wanted to go ahead and do this anyway just so you could kind of see what this looks like, what's going on here. So instead of this being a Google document that you can edit, it is Google Slides. And that's going to be easier for you in that stuff's not going to move around so much. Basically, all you're able to edit are the answers. You can't move around everything else. Now, let me also just say, when you look at this, this is on demand. You'll notice it looks pretty darn long, and you'll hear me say all the time in class, when we get these what seem like huge long packets, oftentimes in economics stuff looks a lot more fierce than it is. It looks a lot longer than it really is. It's just that in econ, you have a lot of stuff that takes up a lot of space, particularly these graphs and such. You can see that this whole page, that is essentially 3 questions. So don't freak out when you see the length of this, and I am giving you several days to work on it. But again, the purpose of this is just to see how you might answer it. So since it's a Google slide, you can't edit any of this stuff. You click on this, nothing's going to happen. But what you will be able to do is right here in all of these spots where there are blanks, there are text boxes. So you will click on those text boxes and type in your answers. Now, it doesn't say type answer here. Sometimes I do that, but with these being so small and there being so many of them, I did not do that. So you're going to have to kind of click around to find them, but they should be there right in those blanks. You type in your answer. You do not have to worry about it being sized perfectly, and you don't have to worry so much about that because I can always move it myself. But that's how you answer those. So then you move on to the next slide. Same thing here on this chart. You'll just click and those become text boxes, and you can type in your answer from there, whatever that might be. Now over here, this is a situation in this column where you've got to circle something. So this is where you want to use that scribble tool, which is right here, or you can also go to insert line, and then scribble is an option. So I could use that to circle the correct answer, whatever, and I just circled that randomly, so don't assume that was the right answer. I didn't even read it. But you could use that to circle your answer or underline or something like that. You can change the color, mess around with the width if you want to. But you can use that scribble tool, which is, again, either right there or insert line, and it's one of the options there. So you can use that anytime you've got a circle, and you'll see that again in a moment. Moving on down, same thing right here. You've got text boxes that you need to click on and put things in. Same thing all through here. There's text boxes all over the place, so forth, so on. Let me get to the graphs. Okay, you've got lots of graphs here for demand. And these first ones give the instructions right there. Use the scribble tool to show the movement or the shift in the demand curve. In the text box over here, because there's 3 things you're being asked to do in these particular problems, this particular set. You have to show what's happening to the demand curve, whether it's a change in demand itself or if it's just movement. You have to illustrate that. You've got to tell me if it's demand or the quantity demanded that is changing, and then explain why, which of the determinants is being used here, or which determinant is applicable to this particular situation. So I'm going to do this one right here, and this number 15, just as an example, both to show you the directions and also how you would do that in this case. So it says the incomes in the city of Downville have increased by 20% due to the decreased, I'm sorry, that says decreased. Due to a closing of a large factory. What happens to the peach market at the local grocery store? Well, that represents a change in income, which is one of the determinants of demand. So that's going to shift demand itself, and that would decrease demand, because if people are not making as much money, they've been laid off from their jobs, they're going to decrease the amount of goods that they buy. In this case, we can assume that's a normal good. So I'm going to use, again, that same scribble tool to show the change. I'm going to show a decrease in demand. So that means my demand curve is going to shift to the left. Now we need to label this D2. because this is labeled D1, and I realize some of these are hard to see, but you can zoom in and out as you need to see that a little bit better. So we do need to label that D2. That might be a little bit hard to do with the scribble tool. So what you probably want to do there is just put yourself a little teeny tiny text box and label that as D2 for demand 2, because always, always, always label. Now we need to say whether or not that was a change in demand or quantity demanded, and then the explanation. Now for the illustrating whether or saying whether it's demand or quantity demanded that changed, you can either type that in your text box, or you can use that same scribble tool or to circle like we did on that chart above. So you could circle right here. You could do that, or you could just type that in. You could say, in this case, change in demand, and all you'd have to say is change in income. Okay, so you just have to put what the determinant was, and there you are. So that's how you would do those, and you have several more of those. There's like a page and a half more of that. Then you have, and on this one the directions got cut off, so I typed it in. It's basically the same thing, just a little bit of a different structure. So you illustrate the change in demand or the quantity demanded for the good, and then you will circle, or you can just type it in right here whether or not it is a change in demand or quantity demanded. So it is basically the exact same instructions, it just looks a little bit different. So you would once again go in and use your scribble tool. So for here, demand for bagels, the price of cream cheese has risen. Well, cream cheese and bagels, we can consider those complements. So if the price of cream cheese goes up, then people are going to be demanding a lesser quantity of cream cheese, and that's going to decrease the demand for bagels. So I draw in a second demand curve. Notice how it's not perfect, and that's absolutely fine. Do not worry. And you could even use the line tool to make it perfectly straight if you wanted to. You could do that. I just kind of like the freedom of the drawing, but if you wanted to just put in an actual line, that would also work if you wanted to do like that. So either one, I'm going to use my little text box here, oops, wrong one, to put in D2 because I want to get in the habit of labeling that. Okay, for right here, I could use the scribble tool to circle change in demand or quantity demanded, or I could type that in. This is a change in demand, and this was a change in the price. I'm even going to use abbreviation of a related good, in this case, a complement. Now notice how it kind of went on into the next little bit. That is okay. You can leave it. You can reposition it if you want to, but you do not have to, because I'll be able to move that around if I need to in order to read it. So that continues on. You have several of those. Then when you get to this last page, okay, when you get to the last page, this is where it gets a little bit trickier as far as how to put in your answer, because these are basically, it's the exact same thing. It's just this time you have to draw the whole graph. You have to draw the axes yourself. You have to draw in the original demand curve D1, and then you've got to draw in that second demand curve if one is required and label it D2. So again, basically the same as what you saw up here, but you have to do this part as well. Now in Google Slides, unfortunately, in Google Drawings, not Google Drawings, I'm sorry, in Google Docs, I showed you there's a way to insert a drawing, and then you can do a drawing and it puts it in. You can't do that in Google Slides. So what you can do, you could do these on paper, and you could, insert the pictures. I would even accept it if you didn't do all the pictures one at a time, if you just clearly labeled them and, just attached one document that was all of your graphs here, that would be fine. You could do it that way, or you could go in and insert, image, upload, and you could put in your pictures that way. But another option that I wanted you to be aware of that you have, that's the closest thing to insert drawing, is to actually use Google Drawings. Some of you may or may not have used Google Drawings before. I think this is probably one of the lesser used Google applications, but I like it pretty well. So you can go into Google Drawings, just go to drawings.google.com, and there it's basically the same thing that comes up when you're in Google Docs and go to insert drawing. So I could, let's say, I'm going to draw my graph. I'm going to use the lines here. You don't have to. You can use scribble. I'm just going to do that to make my lines nice and straight. Oops, messed it up. Going again. Put in my other axis right there. Okay. I'm going to, let's see, what was the question on that one? I'm going to go ahead and just illustrate it. So this was at every grocery store. Let me go back. Every grocery store price of hot dogs has been all-time high, and so we are to illustrate the demand then for hot dog buns. Well, those are complements, and if the prices of hot dogs is gone up, the quantity demanded of those is going to decrease, and therefore the demand for hot dog buns is going to decrease. So I need to show a decrease in demand happening here. So I'm going to use my scribble tool. I'm going to put in my original demand curve. I'm going to label it. Let me put in my axes real quick. Always label price. Put in quantity. Oops, that's not a Q. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to, you know what, I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here and then just change what's in it. Oops, messed it up. So D1. All right, now I'm going to show decrease in the demand for hot dog buns by putting in a new demand curve to the left. And I'm going to label it D2. Okay, now then so we've got our drawing. That will suffice for your drawing. Notice it's not perfect, but it's clearly labeled and it makes sense. Okay, now how do we get this over here? Well, the way to do that is you go to File. You're going to Publish to the web. Okay, and Publish. Yes, I want to publish it. Now I have a link that I'm going to copy. I'm going to put over here, Insert Image by URL, paste it, insert it, and then I can resize it to get it to fit nicely and neatly in that little spot. So that is a way that you can do that. So that's how that can be done. The it's a little bit cumbersome, but it just kind of depends on your preferences as far as what you want to do. Now, the thing is, when you go to the next one, you're going to have to open up a new Google Drawing. You can't use the same one. You can't just edit it and then republish it. It will go back to the original, at least as far as I can tell. So you will have to open up a new one. I see no reason to keep these around all that much, so I think it's fine to just delete them. Notice I didn't even save this, so I think that's okay. But you don't have that many like this, but that is a way to do that if you don't want to actually upload pictures. But any way that you choose to do it is absolutely fine, whatever is easiest for you, and then you will submit this in Google Classroom just like anything else. So let me know if you have any questions, and if anything looks weird or strange. I hope this is helpful, and hope you, best of luck to you. This is a very, very important concept, supply and demand, so that's one of the reasons for so many different examples to work through. This is a very, very crucial concept we got to make sure we get down. So see you guys next time.